Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm Kasparian. John Iadarola joins in today.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm in a rage, to say the least.
Really?
Yeah.
I
I'm in a
couldn't
rage.
tell.
So let me just say, I want to apologize to our audience because while the mainstream media has been critiqued on this show over and over and over again, those critiques usually come from the perspective of someone who has given the media the benefit of the doubt and maybe thought, hey, this misreporting, this misinformation, it's not the product of malicious intent. It's just simply laziness or incompetence or whatever, whatever. There is an actual malicious intent behind the inaccuracies that are reported about certain people or certain stories. But this last week has been an eye-opener for me, and I'm gonna explain why in just a minute. But one thing that I'm grateful for is everything that we had, I guess, suspected about the way the media treats certain people, like Bernie Sanders, for instance, has been confirmed, okay? We don't need to guess anymore, we don't need to speculate anymore. It's abundantly clear that mainstream media is just part of the corrupt political apparatus in this country. Period. And there is malicious intent. For me, that's the big thing. Like, of course, you need to be skeptical of all reporting, right? Because human error exists. But no, it's not just human error. There is malicious intent, and it's insane. And it's thrown my entire world like upside down because I genuinely believed in journalism in this country. I genuinely believed in some of these, long-standing traditional media institutions. And now I don't know what to believe, and that's a scary place to be in. And I know this is very vulnerable and this is very honest, and we're gonna get into the details of what I'm talking about in just a minute, but I just wanted to put that out there. It's the only way I can think of starting the show today.
We are.
So I wanted to give you guys a few updates on programming, and then we'll get to the stories. So there is a Democratic debate happening in Los Angeles this week, and as always, TYT will be providing special coverage of it. So we'll be covering the Los Angeles Democratic primary debate this Thursday on December 19th at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Pacific. You can watch it live by going to tyt.com/live. And on the panel, we'll have John Iadarola, Ida Rodriguez, Cenk Uygur, and myself. So make sure you check that out.
Just to confirm though, we don't know 100% yet if it's happening.
Yeah, good point. So the debate is supposed to take place at Loyola Marymount University. There's currently a strike happening at that campus, and several of the candidates have said that they are not going to cross the picket line.
It's actually all of them now.
All of them now? Okay, great. So it started off with Bernie Sanders and then Elizabeth Warren, and now it's all of the candidates. They're trying to make a principled stand, and I commend them for that. So we'll see how this all plays out. But for the moment being, it appears that they're still planning on holding the debate. We'll just see if that actually goes through.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started. A number of media outlets have been reporting smears on Cenk Uygur, who is, of course, a candidate for California's 25th district. Now, Cenk is not on the show today. He's not even in the studio or in the building today. And even though we are allowed to talk about that race or cover that race as if it's any other race in the country, I've shied away from talking about it on this show. We do editorial content here. We share opinion and analysis. We're not strict news. However, I just wanted to kind of keep away from covering that race in order to keep my own personal biases out of the story. However, we're now put in this position where we literally have no choice but to respond to the smears that are being put out there by the establishment, plain and simple. They are going through 13 years of video that TYT has produced. They're cherry picking and taking things out of context in order to make it appear as though Cenk is supportive of all sorts of disgusting and egregious things. Now, of course, he had his blogs from nearly 20 years ago, which he has already addressed over and over again. He's apologized for them. He wrote them at a different time in his life. However, one of the smears is so egregious that we had to talk about it on the show and debunk it. So it actually comes in the form of a New York Times article that was written by a reporter named Jennifer Medina. And so I want to show you the headline of the piece. It was in response to Bernie Sanders unendorsing Cenk. Bernie Sanders retracts endorsement of Cenk Uygur after criticism. And again, Jennifer Medina wrote this piece. And so in it, there's an excerpt that reads, quote, in one clip that circulated on Twitter, David Duke ends an interview by saying, "I am not what you call a racist," to which Uygur replies, "No, of course not." Now, when Cenk said no, of course not, if you watch the full video, if you watch just that snippet of the video, it is abundantly clear that he's being dismissive and sarcastic toward David Duke. If you watch the entirety of that interview, you will see that he goes after David Duke pretty aggressively. In fact, we're gonna show you a clip of that in just a minute. But this is how far Christy Smith, the establishment media, and the Democratic establishment will go to smear Cenk, plain and simple. Now, has he made mistakes in his commentary in the past? Absolutely. Was he wrong in writing an op-ed when he was in college claiming that the Armenian genocide was not a genocide? Yes, we've talked about that on this show. We've debated this on the show. I have been able to speak out against that aggressively, both on this show and behind the scenes. And he not only rejects that op-ed he wrote when he was a stupid college student, he has acknowledged the genocide on this very program over and over and over again, right? So we're gonna show you.
People conveniently forget.
Right, they don't conveniently forget, right? They're just bad faith actors, and I'm sick of it. Because this isn't just about California's 25th district. This isn't about Cenk. This is about what we can and can't believe in reporting, right? So for me, this goes beyond TYT. It goes beyond Cenk. What can I trust from the New York Times if they brazenly publish this type of garbage, and then when there's a flood of people demanding a retraction and a correction, they refuse to do it? Jennifer Medina hasn't responded at all. The New York Times hasn't responded at all. They reported this as if Cenk is agreeing with David Duke in saying that he's not a bigot or he's not a racist. Let's show you what the interview actually looked like.
Name me one anti-Semitic person.
I say that
you can't.
The Jewish organized.
David, how can you think you're not anti-Semitic? How could you possibly think that? You think the Jews control the world? That's anti-Semitism 101.
I'll give you another quotation.
Kagan is on the Supreme Court, but so is Sotomayor, and she's definitely not Jewish. She's Latina. I mean, Kagan made it onto the Supreme Court, but so is Sotomayor. Those are two picks by Obama. Sotomayor, clearly not Jewish. In fact, what is it? What I think 7 out of the 9 justices are Catholic. Oh my God, the Catholics have taken over the Supreme Court. Watch out, David. Watch out, it's the Catholics that are the problem. But then you've got the Koch brothers who buy all these politicians. They're not Jewish. How does that fit into your conspiracy theory?
So,
I mean, you keep saying Goldman Sachs, but before Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs was Hank Paulson. Christian extraordinaire. The biggest political contributor in the country is not Sheldon Adelson. It is David and Charles Koch. They are enormously Christian. They're Christian. If you built everything, but somehow you don't have power anymore, you can't even get into the schools you built, why are you guys such losers?
That video, to watch the interview, to confirm what a Twitter troll is putting out there right now. And that Twitter troll, by the way, is, we'll get to her in just a minute, or him, or they. I don't know the identity of this specific person, but I can guarantee you this person is lying about their identity on Twitter and spending every waking moment not even cherry picking, taking things out of context from decades of TYT content in an effort to smear Cenk. And it's disgusting that mainstream media outlets, including the New York Times, just take that at face value, print it, publish it, never correct it, right? Which shows you that there's malicious intent here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, so if I'm trying to play devil's advocate, it's either.
I don't know if right now is a good time to play devil's advocate. I have no patience for it, but go ahead.
Could you put down the pen, please, and the mug? Okay, so it's either malicious. This person watched the video, knows that it was sarcasm, but doesn't want you to know that, and so leaves it out. Or complete laziness, doesn't even watch the snippet of the video, let alone the full video, and just believes, because I've seen other things that he's said that I don't like, I will trust that anything you tell me he said is the way that you say he said it. But in either case, once it becomes immediately apparent that it's not an accurate portrayal, it doesn't matter if it's laziness or if it's malicious. You have to take it out. It's your obligation as a reporter for the New York Times more than any other outlet literally on the planet. They're supposed to have the highest standards. And so you can have a problem. Like I've talked with people that say, it doesn't matter if he was sarcastic, he had David Duke on, I don't want him to have David Duke on, which is fine. Write that in your article. But to say that he was agreeing with him that he's not racist was either initially malicious or lazy, but it doesn't matter because we know it's not accurate. And so how dare you not take it out of the article?
Well, because there's malicious intent. To me, that's what demonstrated that this isn't about reporting the facts. This isn't about telling the truth about what's happening in that district and what this race is about. Look, there's legitimate criticism regarding Cenk running and his position as a candidate, the fact that he doesn't live in the district. Fine, people find that to be a problem. And so that is legitimate reporting. That is something that you can include in your article as a legitimate critique. But to go out of your way to smear him like this, to take videos where he's obviously making a joke. Like they're trying to paint him as someone who's like pro bestiality. I mean, the most egregious, ridiculous, pathetic smears you can imagine, they're just printing and they're taking it at face value from a Twitter troll. So let's get to the Twitter troll because I want to discuss this person.
I have general thoughts, but let's do the troll first.
Okay, so there is one person who is very dedicated in spending all of their time posting nonsense videos that are taken out of context, all of these smears that we're talking about. By the way, Tom Watson, who's not hiding his identity, he's a political strategist, a Democratic strategist, who is regurgitating a lot of this. In fact, he even went out of his way to make it appear as though I deny the Armenian genocide, which is disgusting, and it's very difficult to hold back from cursing on this show right now. Because that's my family, those are my ancestors, okay? To exploit them and pretend as if you care about the Armenian genocide to push your stupid political narrative and your stupid political agenda is so incredibly gross. And I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of it from the right, and I'm certainly sick of it from the left. Pretending as if you care about the genocide. You care about the genocide? Why weren't you lobbying to get it recognized in Congress? You weren't, right? Because you don't care. It's nothing more than your little political tactic. But one of these trolls is M. Mendoza Ferrer, right? Has changed the Twitter account several times. Oh, here's my new Twitter account. Now that I've sniped one political candidate I don't like, I'm gonna go ahead and use a new account to snipe another one. I have reason to believe that that's not a real person, okay? So we're looking into it. Because I want to know, all right, is this like a paid political operative who is part of the Democratic establishment, trying to smear Cenk, trying to smear the Young Turks, trying to smear everything that we do here? I want to know. And what's really interesting is, in response to one of our viewers also questioning the identity of this person, I said, it's not her real name. Already digging into this, they think we're stupid, okay? And what did she do? By the way, this person has blocked me, so I'm not able to respond to any of the smears that they post. None of them. I have no voice, right? Anyone who has actual evidence to provide a rebuttal to the smears that this person is putting out there, you're blocked, so you don't get an opportunity. But in response to that comment, this person wrote, if people could report Anna Kasparian's tweet below as targeted harassment, I would appreciate it. Oh, that's rich. That's rich. You want to talk about targeted harassment? That's not targeted harassment. All these reporters are relying on this person's posts on Twitter to do their reporting, right? We're not allowed to know what your identity is?
Well, and the level it goes to is Jake Tapper just tweeted a thread to her thread.
Yeah.
So if she took like 6 seconds out of a video, removes the contents, removes the fact that it was sarcasm, Jake Tapper believes, I just trust her. It's fine. I don't need to go and find the videos myself. You can just trust this non-verified person that I didn't know up until earlier today. Run with that, that's fine.
And so you're exactly right. So if this is the source who is publicly posting smears on Cenk and the Young Turks, and the media is just taking it at face value, reprinting it, republishing it, regurgitating it, we don't have the right to know whether or not this person is a paid political operative?
Or is affiliated with the campaign.
Or affiliated with the campaign, exactly. But again, if they're affiliated with the campaign, political operative, we should know about it. So this Tom Watson guy, again, a Democratic strategist, wrote, here's Anna from TYT digging into the real identity of the person posting videos of Cenk's own words, out of context, by the way, right? And then he accuses me of ramping up to dox and expose. So this is what Democrats are about. establishment Democrats. This is what they're about, right? By the way, that wasn't Tom Watson, but Tom Watson tweeted something similar.
Yeah.
That was someone who's also going after Cenk on Twitter.
And might like Pete Buttigieg.
And might like
seems.
Yeah, exactly.
Dox has a definition.
Doxing?
Yeah, it's exposing the personal information such that a person could go and find that person in the real world. It exposes someone to violence, possibly sexual or physical violence that could lead to them being killed. Simply identifying a name that goes along with a social media account, that is not doxing a person.
Yeah.
By the way, as people who have literally been doxed, we appreciate the distinction between these things.
But they don't care about us getting doxed.
Exactly.
Right? They don't care about doxing in general. They don't care about anyone getting doxed unless it's one of their own political operatives that they're trying to protect, right? Because it would look real bad if we find out that this person is actually associated with a campaign or is part of the DNC.
Or an industry or a lobby group or something.
That would be a real problem. So let's go ahead and try to intimidate Anna into by accusing her of trying to dox people. Yeah, let me just let you guys know something. Maybe you haven't watched the show much. I'm not easy to intimidate, okay?
I've tried.
Yeah, so.
And by the way, it's just a matter of time because over the past few days, this has been written about by the LA Times, Washington Post, New York Times, literally everyone, so many reporters, they're gonna wanna know who this person is.
So let's take a look at what Cenk has to say about the Armenian genocide because that's another smear that I'm seeing over and over again. Let's take a look.
Did I write things about that when I was younger? Yes, so that part is true. So I did deny it earlier. I wrote in a column when I was in college about that. And so obviously a long time ago. Well, what's my position? I think I've stated it clearly a number of times, but I'm gonna state it one more time here, okay? The Armenian genocide happened. It existed, it's true, okay? I don't know how I could be any clearer than that. So I know that some Turkish folks grew up believing in things that were taught to them, whether it was in Turkey or through other means. And I know because I lived that, right? I'm a Turkish American and I grew up believing the things that I was taught. Looking back on it, some of it is absolutely absurd. And Armenian genocide is an incredibly serious issue. And they were targeted because they were Armenians. Whatever excuse you want to make about why, they didn't target Norwegians. They didn't target other people. They targeted Armenians. They were driven out. They're not in Turkey now. And an enormous number died in massacres. It is a textbook definition of a genocide.
And that's just one example of Cenk talking about the Armenian genocide on this network, but it doesn't matter. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about the facts. They're going out of their way to smear him. And once Bernie Sanders endorsed Cenk, let's kill two birds with one stone.
Because it's not about Cenk at that point.
It's not about Cenk. And look, this is the thing, you guys, we're not living in a true democracy if you have the media serving as an extension of political agendas, as nothing more than an apparatus utilized by corrupt politicians. We just don't have a democracy, period. We just don't. And we certainly don't have true journalism in this country if we're gonna allow stuff like this to pass.
So I read a good number of the articles over the past few days, and the New York Times one really stands out as the one most willing to say something that they must have known was literally the opposite of the truth. The vast majority of the other articles, I mean, we expected there would be negative press. Obviously, Cenk knew that there would be negative press. He's a guy who has spoken more on camera than literally anyone else in the country, and he's never shied away from saying things that were then or are now controversial. The thing about the entire episode that I have found to be depressing is the media's dereliction of their duty in this particular case. Not that they're gonna cover the stuff that he said. Nobody thought that they were not going to do that sort of thing. Before the Sanders thing, after the Sanders thing, I mean, obviously that was gonna be a part of the race. But for any given Democratic congressional primary around the country, how many front page New York Times articles do you think will be written about it? None, probably. How many times will the LA Times write about a particular Democratic primary race, even in California? Maybe it'll get one. Washington Post, same thing. Politico, same thing. I don't know if there has been this cycle as much focus on one congressional primary on the Democratic side anywhere in the country. And yet, after days of reading article after article after article, I could not tell you anything substantive about either of the candidates. I don't know where Cenk stands on healthcare, income inequality, police brutality, climate change, anything.
By reading those articles.
By reading those articles. Obviously, I know because I'm here and I know him. Christy Smith, I have no idea.
Well, she doesn't stand for anything.
Well, perhaps.
She doesn't even have a she doesn't have a web page that has fully thought out policy proposals.
And
nothing.
So that's the thing.
This is what she has: smear attacks, smear campaigns. That's what Christy Smith has. Congratulations.
So this is an incredibly important primary, and by no means a slam dunk win for any Democrat who ends up getting it. This is a purple district. The Democratic candidate that you get is very important. And the idea that you would write thousands of words and never mention substantive information about what the stakes of the election are, what it means to choose one candidate over another, what their actual agenda is. Cenk has said a lot of controversial things, a lot of offensive things over the years, but he's also said more about his political ideology than literally anyone else in the country. If you wanted to know what he thought about reproductive rights, trade policy, foreign policy, you have more on the books to quote from than anything. Pete Buttigieg, every video of him speaking before 2 years ago goes viral because there's like 3 of them. We know almost nothing. With Cenk, we know almost everything, but no interest. Jake Tapper's not gonna have him on to say, you know what, I wanna talk about this controversial stuff, but also, what do you think about Medicare for all? That's a really important policy. What do you think about climate change? Seems kind of important. They are treating this entire election as if it is just about taking down Cenk. Christy Smith never has to say a thing about her agenda. She can just sort of coast by, probably, if that's gonna be her campaign strategy, lose next November to the Republican. It's so much more important than that. You're the New York Times, you're the Washington Post, you're the LA Times. You have resources and expertise and training, and you can't say anything about what these people would actually do? Why do we think that so many voters have no clue what's going on in this country?
Right.
To put all of this focus onto a race and teach nothing except about the controversy, which we were always gonna get. Nobody's surprised about that. But do that and then put something about so many issues that are so important to hundreds of millions of Americans.
They don't care. And again, if the media were really supposed to fulfill the obligations and the responsibilities of true journalists, true journalism, right? Then they wouldn't be so hyper-focused on these attacks. I mean, again, they're serving as an extension of political campaigns, really. And that's the part that's been heartbreaking for me personally. Now, of course, there's the personal aspect of it with Cenk. But you guys, I wanted to be in media. I wanted to work in media since I was a kid. And I just believed things about journalism that aren't true at all. And that's a difficult thing to take in. Because look, again, we've criticized mainstream press, but I always thought that when these mistakes were made, that they were mistakes, that it was because of incompetence. It was because there wasn't actually ill intent. Come on, guys, journalism's important. There isn't bad intent, especially with places like the New York Times. Like, yes, people are like, oh, you didn't know? I mean, come on, look what happened with the war in Iraq. Yes, I know about those mistakes, believe me. But I just didn't want to believe or buy into this idea that the journalists that write for the Times are bad people and that they're doing this maliciously or intentionally. And I was wrong, and it's a difficult thing to take in.
Yeah. Well, at least in this one case, it would be very easy for this particular writer or the editor in charge of it or whatever to fix this. Issue a correction. Don't just take it out of your article. Issue a correction saying, whether by malice or laziness, we gave an incredibly false impression of something that we reported on. We apologize for that, and we aim to do better in the future. Easiest thing in the world. You would expect it from any outlet.
Unless we can't independently verify things that have been reported by the New York Times, we will no longer use the New York Times as a source for any of our coverage, period. At least on the main show. I can't talk for the rest of the network. I can't trust them. And so while they might think that their job isn't serious and that they can just play games and patty cakes with politicians, I take this job seriously, and I actually care about making sure we get you guys the truth. So that's where we stand right now.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
Hey guys, welcome back to TYT. Anna and John with you. I wanted to read a few member comments and some TYT lives before we get to the rest of the news. Stone Cold Kasparian Stunner writes in and says, Anna, I don't pay to watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. There is plenty of free content online to be had. I'm more than happy and honored to pay for my TYT membership because the truth is priceless. Thank you so much. And look, I was just saying during the break, sometimes it feels like we have no power because we don't have the money behind us. We don't have the resources that some of these major news outlets do. But having you guys behind us, both our members and also people who might not have the means to be members, like you guys are the ones that keep us going, viewers in general. Like we would not be able to have any influence, any sway, nothing without you guys, so thank you. Terry Teeter, a teeter-totter German teacher says,
I think they're just trolling us with these names now. I don't think that's their real name.
No, of course it's not their real names.
I mean their real online names. I know it's not on their birth certificate.
Of course there are journalists who are willing to knowingly spread lies. If only because journalists are not paid much and life in New York is expensive. Mondo Libre says, I was disheartened as a journalism major during the Reagan era. Anna, you're absolutely correct in your assessment. I know, and it's incredibly depressing. And a few TYT lives, and we'll move on. I rinse in McConnell's neck bag sweat says, Anna is near flames. Someone be on standby with a bucket of water and a joint. I'll take the joint. Or are you guys gonna use that against me now, huh, Christy Smith? Huh? Yeah, I like pot. I like to smoke pot.
That's what she does.
Okay, that's what I do. Anyway, let's move on.
But keep the water nearby because my throat gets dry a lot of the time. After pot, okay?
The Young Turks partake in marijuana consumption.
Yeah. And I'm not joking, I really do get dry mouth though.
Yeah, most people do.
Okay, good.
All right, so let's move on to non-California politics stuff. So, Donald Trump's impeachment continues, and it is, of course, going to now move to the Senate, where Trump will stand trial, and senators will decide whether or not to convict him of the articles of impeachment, which include abuse of power and, of course,
obstruction of Congress.
Construction of Congress, exactly. Now, obstruction, did I say construction? Sorry about that, obstruction of Congress.
There's only one thing he wants to construct and it ain't Congress.
Right, so now with that said, I find this latest story about what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is doing because no one's gonna listen to him. He sent a letter to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell with a few demands, and the demands include testimony from former National Security Advisor John Bolton and also White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Also, Schumer wrote that other witnesses should be called as well, should they be identified by the Trump administration or members of the House who have been designated as impeachment managers. Other requested witnesses include Robert Blair, Mulvaney's senior advisor, and Michael Duffy, associate director for national security at the Office of Management and Budget. Schumer also called for the Senate to subpoena documents from the White House, State Department, and OMB regarding the delay of military assistance to Ukraine. Now, these are all things that make sense. I mean, testimony from the individuals that Schumer is asking for makes all the sense in the world. The question is, what type of games are Republicans gonna play? Particularly someone like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has, been guilty of obstruction himself, like not in the criminal sense, but when it comes to something like, I don't know, confirming a Supreme Court nominee, he's pretty aggressive in preventing those types of things from actually coming to fruition. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have some idea. I mean, they've talked about some of the witnesses they would like to see there. The idea that they're gonna get Joe Biden or Hunter Biden is part of, like, it's depressing. The lack of seriousness with which they've not just dealt with his trial. They're almost certainly none of them are going to vote for it. I get that, but the entire thing that they can't even, like they would have in the 90s, they would have had to pretend to care about a foreign power getting involved in our election, or somebody trying to get them involved in our election. You know, they would still support the president probably. We were still incredibly partisan. People think that's a new thing. We were partisan then, but they would have pretended. There's no obligation to pretend anymore, to imply that democracy is important or that your vote should count. And so the fact that Trump, like that Giuliani's investigation was based on absolutely nothing, the conspiracy theories about like CrowdStrike and all that, they're just going to amplify those as part of the trial, because Donald Trump wanted, he wanted the investigations, sort of, but what he wanted was the narrative to be about investigations. So why not get that anyway, just by bringing it up as part of the trial? It really accomplishes the corrupt goal he was pushing for.
You're right. I mean, look, we knew that there would be issues once this gets to the Senate, and so this could be disastrous, not only for the current political state that we're in, but what it means for the future. Because if Trump is acquitted in the Senate, as we're all expecting that to happen, right? Now there's the upside of getting all of these Republican lawmakers on the record, enabling Trump's criminal activity. But then there's the giant downside of now setting a precedent that says, no, it's okay to ask foreign governments to meddle in our elections, because that is what Trump did. Again, there's a lot of evidence that bears that out. And we've had over a dozen people, both within the Trump administration and no longer with the Trump administration, testify against him during these House committee hearings.
Yeah, and look, very often between elections, we will say this should be an ad, but it is a slam dunk that once you get them all to vote, and let's assume that all of them do, just start running ads. Donald Trump thought he could take your tax dollars and manipulate a foreign power and investigating his political rivals, and so a senator said it was fine. Like, you gotta run those sorts of ads. We know that especially in the last few election cycles, corruption is a huge motivator to come out and vote. No one has been as obvious with their corruption as Donald Trump. And if these Republican senators wanna sign off on that, good, do that, and then link them to his corruption. That's how you want to win the Senate. That's how you do it. And especially Mitch McConnell. He thinks he's clever and he's cute and he's playing games and stuff like that. He is already polling really poorly. It's by no means a guarantee that he's going to lose. Certainly not. But if he is going to be the premier defender of Donald Trump and his corruption, then you got to hang that around Mitch McConnell's neck.
Well, one thing I'm also really curious about is how Republicans plan to respond to the actual substance of the testimony during this trial, right? Because you're gonna have testimony, witnesses are gonna be called by the Democrats, and they're going to say much of what we've already heard during these public hearings in the House. And so,
do you remember Kavanaugh hearings? Do you remember Lindsey Graham's impassioned rant?
I remember that, but look, it's a little different, right? Because the accusations against Kavanaugh are incredibly difficult to prove, because Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. Ford, was really the only person in that room when Brett Kavanaugh allegedly did what he did, okay? And so with the impeachment trial, you have witnesses who all corroborate the same thing. And so there's way more evidence here, which is why originally Republicans were scared of what to do. They attacked the process of impeachment, but they wouldn't attack the actual substance of what the witnesses would say. They would attack, let's say, the character of the witnesses, even though many of them were appointed by Donald Trump. They would say that they're never Trumpers, that they have a political agenda. But I don't think that really goes. I don't think that works. I don't think that that's effective.
Yeah, I don't know how or if they're gonna respond at all. I think Mitch McConnell is gonna rush through it as fast as he possibly can. I think that every action that Republicans, in particular Republicans in the Senate, are taking is predicated on one belief, and that is there are enough white conservatives to get them reelected. And I don't think that they're going to change in any fundamental way until it is proven to them that that is not true. And they need to expand beyond that incredibly significant but shrinking base.
Well, let's talk a little bit about public opinion on the impeachment process, because there's a new Fox poll out that's just fascinating and kind of surprising. So, Fox News has published its latest poll on Donald Trump's approval ratings and also how the public feels about the impeachment and removal process. And this is a poll that Trump isn't very happy about. In fact, he raged about it on Twitter. We'll share that in just a minute. But first, let me give you some of the results. According to Fox News, 45% of voters approve of the job Trump's doing. That's actually up from 42% in late October. It's kind of shocking. Over half, 53%, disapprove. That lands the president almost exactly where he started the year, as 43% approved and 54% disapproved in January. Now let's get to how people feel about the impeachment. The same poll finds that 50% want Trump impeached and removed from office. 4% say impeached but not removed, and 41% oppose impeaching him altogether. That means that 54% of voters think that Donald Trump should be impeached, right? So a majority think he should be impeached, and so he didn't like that. He had a salty tweet about it over the weekend. He said, "The Fox News poll, always inaccurate, are heavily weighted toward Dems. So ridiculous. Same thing happened in 2016. They got it all wrong. Get a new pollster." So I have more results from this poll, but it's just amazing how easily, and look, he can easily brush things off as fake news because fake news does exist, right? I mean, there are, as we know from recent news stories that we've covered on this show, there are bad faith actors, dishonest actors who put fake information out there. They knowingly, intentionally, maliciously post things, publish things that are false because they have a political agenda. So they're helping someone like Donald Trump brush things off as fake news.
Yes, I am not as terrified about the number of that as you. I still think most people are good if flawed and biased and come at things from a particular point of view.
Oh, your day will come, John.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming. But yeah, the heavily weighted towards Dems. First of all, no, it's not. And second of all, why would it be? Why would Fox? Why would you watch Fox 14 hours a day? Why would they do that? What would be the objective of that? To produce polls that are biased against him, that the vast majority of their hosts are never gonna reference on air anyway. What would be the point of doing that? And by the way, if I could teach everyone one thing, it's that when you see the results of the poll, do you know that you could get more information if you want to? You can get the actual exact questions, the exact data. You can get the crosstabs on it. You can get information on exactly how it was weighted. You don't have to trust Donald Trump on that. You can see exactly how it was weighted.
Yeah, exactly.
But nobody does that.
Nobody does that. Well, one person who should probably look into it is Kilmeade, who is also shocked by these poll results. Let's take a look.
According to the latest Fox News poll, support for impeachment is holding steady, with 50% of respondents saying they favor impeaching and removing President Trump from office.
And just keep in mind, too, the Fox poll came out, and I was stunned by this. It says 50% of the country want the president impeached. I was stunned to see that that's the number because I thought that things were trending away, although the president's approval rating did tick up in the same poll. So it's almost like a split personality.
So this... Look,
why did you believe it was trending away? Because the president tweeted it? Fox News comes out with polls every week. You can probably get them emailed automatically to you when they're done. Why did you believe that crazy, crazy thing?
So look, famously, you and I disagree about the importance of polls, right? Like you seem to like polls more than I do. And part of the reason why I don't like polls is because there are inconsistencies in polls all the time. And oftentimes the polls that get the most attention tend to be like the results are within the margin of error. So you don't really learn anything from it anyway. It could go both ways.
You learn it's close.
Okay,
that
sure,
could be useful
whatever.
information. Yes, so look, one other thing I wanna say about the poll though is, so it's holding steady. I think everyone should be frustrated by that because all of the information coming out, all of the witnesses coming out, whichever way it was gonna move, it should have moved in some direction as a result of that, but it didn't. And that scares me about the way people go to the news and their willingness to like be affected by it. But more importantly, it's that 41% that say he shouldn't be impeached at all. Because honestly, they're like, if the crime that he is alleged to have committed, what percentage of Americans don't think that someone doing that should be impeached? If it's your political opponent who did that, should he be impeached? That's gotta be above 90%.
Right. Well, okay, so here's one other result from the poll that I thought was pretty interesting. So again, this is the same Fox News poll. By a 60 to 24% margin, voters say it is generally wrong for Trump to ask leaders of a foreign country or foreign countries to investigate political rivals. So the majority of Americans find this problematic, yet a smaller portion of the country thinks that Donald Trump should be impeached and removed for doing this.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could think it's wrong, but not to the level. I think that that's wrong.
It totally jeopardizes
I think it's one of the
our
worst things you could possibly imagine.
Like it's one of the worst things you can do, right? I mean,
in terms of a precedent that the president is allowed to set.
Yeah.
If you care about the validity of future elections, this should scare you more than others. I mean, we can disagree about whether other things he's done are more immoral or damaging to human rights or civil rights, things like that. But in terms of democratic norms and confidence that you can have in future presidential elections, this is just about the worst thing that he's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got to take a break. But before we get to that break, I wanted to give you a little information about a video we're gonna toss to during the break. So, for our members, we like to put together a lot of special, exclusive members only content. And so this year was the second year where we did Hostmates. It's a fun game show. And this year we did the OGs versus the newbies. A lot of fun to shoot. And by the way, she never gets any credit for this. Judith is the person who worked on this from beginning to end. And of course, everybody included like their own work, whether it's editing, actually being part of it as host, whatever. Like everyone put in a lot of hard work, but this is really Judith's project that she's thought of and produced and done such a good job on. And so
she did a crazy amount of work. I will also say, like it was when we shot it, super late night for everyone. So the crew was here until super late. But they were here the night before doing the run through at least as long, if not longer.
Yeah, so yes, I mean the tech work that it took for this to come together is incredible. So everyone in the company really worked hard on this. But anyway, I'm giving you that context. But I want you to know that if you're a member, you can actually watch Hostmates on December 27th. And so it'll be ready to stream. You just go to either our app or our website. It'll be ready for you, again, December 27th. If you're not a member and you're interested in checking this out, you can always join by going to tyt.com/join. We really do go out of our way to give our members exclusive content, both on debate nights, election nights, and also fun content like this. So check that out. Again, go to tyt.com/join. Members, keep us afloat. You guys help us keep doing what we're doing. We would be nothing without you, so thank you.